executions for this day were, here we go. So executions were 68, 62, or technically 63, let's say, right? And this was the execution at the key level. So here was the footprint charts, and we're going to get the footprint charts side by side with the candlestick chart. So let's break this down. So our first entry into the zone was here, right? So let's make this a bit bigger so we can see. This blue box is the key level. Now, specifically, what do we see over here, right? What is this, right? Well, it looks like a lot of numbers, but reading order flow is simple to understand when you can execute basic concepts, right? When you understand the footprint charts, they're very easy to read. So what we can see here again is negative delta like we went through before, right? So this corresponds to this candle, right? Sorry, here we go. So this chart here, right, this right-hand side is the same as the left-hand side, right? So you want to really dissect this, right? You want to sort of understand what's going on. This candle, huge bearish candle, huge amounts of negative delta or aggressive selling. Now, specifically on the bottom, it's a bit small, but when we dive into the price action, it says 316 for 101, just over here. Right? Then we see 62 for 0, 4 for 0, 19 for 0. We see all these zeros here, right? But what's important to understand is that there are aggressive sellers, a heavy amount of aggressive selling, but the market broke higher. So when I'm executing, I get a lot of questions about how I find my levels and how I execute, right? So I'm going to break down the execution now. Now, when it comes to levels, again, it was 3, it was 2, it was 1. So I'm only looking for a break and retest off one of these levels. That's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking to trade anywhere else. I have a strict rule. I do not trade in between levels, right? I only trade at levels, right? That's the first thing. So get good at finding levels. The second thing is when price comes into your levels, and you can apply this to almost any strategy, support, resistance, trend lines, even EMA crossovers, VWAP bounces, just about anything you name. If you can add and integrate order flow into your analysis, you are going to become a more accurate trader because you understand the executions. Now, this we've kind of dissected this candle over here, so we understand what was going on here. So I'll put it in red just so people can see that. So I'll put this in red, all right? So this candle here is in red. So what's really going on, right? If we break down one of the rows, we saw 316 for 101. So what does that mean? What this means is that there are a lot more aggressive sellers than aggressive buyers, but we broke above the zone. So what does that tell you about this zone? Key level 2, right? Is this a demand zone or a supply zone? That's what you want to ask yourself. Well, it's a demand zone because what's going on here specifically is this. There are actually more aggressive sellers than buyers. Now, what this means specifically in this case, right, is that the aggressive sellers were absorbed. And this is what I mean by absorption, right? This is the absorption process, right? Price comes into your level, price breaks above your level, despite there being a lot more aggressive sellers than buyers. And we see that throughout the entire candle, right? We see all the aggressive sellers here, but they don't get rewarded. Even here, we see this green candle, but what's important is the market's broken higher, but there's a ton of aggressive selling down here. Right, this little green candle, which is this little green candle here. So from an execution perspective, what I'm looking for in real time, right, how I'm looking at the order flow in real time. So if I'm executing at